In today's video, I am going to take a look at Karl Anthony Towns and how he shoots the basketball. He's not a terrible shooter. He's actually pretty good. So let's get down and let's check him out and see how he's able to shoot the basketball in this game, because it's pretty good. If you're a tall player, this is something that you're definitely going to want to learn from. Okay, so really quick, I want to point out something that I highly disagree with, and that is the fact that his toes seem to be pointing and essentially crossing. However, his shoulders, as well as his hips and knees, are pretty much all facing the same direction, as well as his left foot. His right foot seems to be slightly tilted in, which is kind of interesting. You generally want everything to be on the same plane, because if that is the case, then your shot is going to be a lot more consistent. However, I do like the fact that his shoulders are over top of his toes, but his knees need to be, in my opinion, more bent. This will help him engage more muscle in his leg, but also should be able to engage his lower back a little bit more, which will give him more distance on his shot, in theory anyways. Really quickly, if you want to be able to shoot the basketball better, make sure to go check out the shooting workout that is down in the description below. But going up into his shot, he does seem to have a two-motion shot. He does tend to freeze right there for about 3 frames at his forehead. That is a two-motion shot in my opinion. And then he's able to release the ball nice and high. Now he does have a defender, so that is going to force his release to be a bit higher. His elbow is above his forehead, which will give him good arc. Generally speaking, you want to have your elbow over your forehead on release, which will give you more arc. And a lot of shooting coaches will say to have your ear tucked into your shoulder. Everyone has different widths of shoulders. Players like my nephew David, as an example, who have really broad shoulders, are going to be unable to do that. However, players who are maybe with lesser, not as wide shoulders would be able to do this. I also want to point out the fact that he is on his toes, and being on your toes will engage the Achilles, which is the springiness to your jump, which will get him up into the air much faster. And he's got a nice high release. His shoulder, at least in this clip, seems to be in line with his elbow to the rim, and the ball seems to be right above his right eye, which will allow him to have that shooting triangle, what I always talk about, which will give him a straight shot. The ball does also travel up the middle of his body as well. And I know there's a lot of shooting coaches who will say that ball needs to start on the right side and go up on the right side and stay on the right side. I'm going to tell you right now, players who have maybe a longer wingspan than their height, or just in general players, will find it more comfortable going up the middle of their body. As long as their shoulder and elbow are in line with the rim at this point, you're generally going to have a straight shot. Now, when his release goes, he's got a nice soft release as well, and we can see that he has no thumb flick on the guide hand right there. There's 0 thumb flick, which is a pretty solid shot. Now, on the actual downwards motion of this shot right here, you generally want to be at about 42 degrees. Now, if we were to measure this out, the drop on this shot is somewhere around 42 to 43, 44 degrees, which is in line with what you want it to be. See, I've already mentioned this in quite a few of my videos, but 42 degrees is pretty solid. If you can be between 40 and 45, you're on the right path, mainly because if the ball comes down too high, the extra gravity is going to have it hit the rim and it's going to bounce out if it hits the rim. If it comes in too shallow, it's going to not see the rim as being as big as it should be, and it's going to bounce out. So in that 42 to 45-ish degrees, 40 degrees to 45 degree angle, that rim is going to look pretty solid, pretty big, and it's not going to have crazy amounts of power coming down, crazy amounts of gravity. When it hits the rim, it should hit the rim and bounce in. That's the idea of having arc and backwards rotation on that ball. Now, from this shot, we can see that he does bring his knees in, and we can do 100% see that his right foot is tilted in. If he was to have a straighter foot, I can't guarantee him having a higher percentage shot, but it's going to be probably a little bit more consistent. We can also see from this shot too that he can get that ball does have a good portion of it over top of his upper arm, which is why it's going to be generally a straight shot as long as he's got a straight release. This arm tilting this way is more for the comfortability of the shot. It's extremely hard to have that ball straight up and down like this. As long as shoulder, elbow, and at least part of that ball is over top of that upper arm, you're generally going to have a straight shot. And we can see that he's got a high release yet again on this shot. Kind of interesting how in a couple of clips that we don't see his knees completely straightening or his back completely straightening, but that is something that can give him more power if he was to actually do that. And he gets some pretty solid rotation. Like, I know we only see it for half of the shot, but we can count it out. That's 1 full rotation, 2 full rotations. You generally want more than 2.5 full rotations on that ball, which is, he's got well over 2.5. The reason why you want to have a 2.5 or more rotations on that ball, it gives it more backspin. So when it does hit that rim, there's a higher chance of it slowing down so that it bounces eventually into the rim. That's why you want rotation on that ball. Now, if you have enjoyed today's video on how Karl Anthony Towns shoots the basketball, make sure to go check out the other videos on this channel and subscribe. And I will see you guys again in my next video.